Last week, we tested the Mercedes-AMG GLC 63 SE Performance, which was a plug-in hybrid, and it even has 2 transmissions. But what if you want a performance vehicle with something less complicated, a little bit more simple? Well, let me present you with this. Hey everyone, welcome back to PR and Test Drive. Today we've got the 2025 Lexus IS 500 with the special appearance package. Let's check it out. Right off the bat, I just wanted to point out how beautiful this car looks. In my opinion, this is the best looking sports sedan on the market. This flare yellow color is exclusive to the special appearance package, and oh man, it just looks so good. No matter what angle you look at this car, I just think it looks great. Every time I park this, I'm compelled to look back and take photos of it. So let's cue the photo collage. Anyway, here in Canada for 2025, there's 3 models of IS to choose from: the IS 300, IS 350, and the IS 500. Both the IS 300 and the 350 are all-wheel drive only. The 500 is rear-wheel drive only. The IS 300 has a starting price after deliveries of about 51,000 Canadian dollars. The 350 has a starting price of about 61 grand, and this one is 79 grand starting. Both the 300, 350, and 500 have options packages you can option for, but this one, as tested, will set you back about 82 grand. Up front, you've got a great looking, aggressive front grille, triple beam LED headlights, along with, of course, the signature Lexus daytime running light tick. You also have a radar sensor there in the middle for your adaptive cruise control, along with 360 camera. The hood is also bulging, as you can see here. This is exclusive for the IS 500. Fun fact, the IS 500 is actually about 2 inches longer than any other regular IS, to accommodate for what's under the hood. All right, this is it. This is the main reason why you'd want to buy this car. You're looking at the 2UR GSE naturally aspirated 5-liter DOHC V8. This engine spots an over-squared setup, 94mm bore, 89.5mm stroke. It has a single throttle body along with D4S, meaning it's both port injected and direct injected. This engine produces 472 horsepower at 7,100 RPM and 395 pound-feet of torque at 4,800 RPM. Redline for this engine is 7,300. The transmission connected to this engine is an Aisin AA80E 8-speed automatic transmission. This is the only transmission that is available on this IS 500. Power goes to the rear wheels only, but with the help of a Torsen limited slip differential. This special appearance package IS 500 gets forged black rims, 235 40 R19s in the front, 265 35 R19s in the rear. These are Bridgestone Potenza S001Ls. In terms of brakes, 4-piston calipers in the front, as well as 2-piece rotors, which isn't something that we frequently see on factory vehicles, so that's pretty cool. Out back, that's a single-piston floating caliper. As for suspension, it's a double wishbone setup in the front and a multi-link setup in the rear. This IS 500 also has adaptive dampers. Lastly, curb weight, we're looking at a little under 1,800 kilos. Around back, again, what a beautiful design. You've got a black lip spoiler here, an LED light bar tail light, an aggressive diffuser, along with your slanted quad exhaust tailpipes. I want to emphasize that these exhausts are very real, although they are a little bit too gentlemanly in my opinion. I think the sounds and the notes just needs to be a little bit more aggressive. The trunk is not powered, nor does a spring open. You do have to lift it up yourself, but inside there's a decent amount of space and you can fold down the rear seats 60-40 split. Unfortunately, there isn't a pull tab here. You have to go over to the rear doors to pull them down. This IS 500 also has a very premium feeling carpet for the trunk, which I quite appreciate. Inside of the IS, it's actually not that small. Now, legroom is pretty decent. Headroom is a little bit tight, but all things considered, at 5'9", I fit pretty comfortably. The materials inside is, as mentioned, suede and synthetic leather, plus, of course, the yellow stitching from the special appearance package. One thing that really bothers me is how big this transmission tunnel hump is. For the middle passenger who's sitting in the middle, not only is the seat sort of lifted up a little bit compared to the side, you also have this big hump, so it's definitely not comfortable. Now, in terms of interior design, is it a little dated? Yes. The buttons, the shapes of the buttons, they all feel like they're from the previous century. But I actually don't mind the analog feel. It doesn't really bother me because I do like having physical buttons in the cabin, and I also really like this old school throwback gear shift. This is very tactile and very analog, and I love it because in today's world most cars have shift by wire with the rotary knobs and things like that. This just adds that little bit of engagement, even though this is no manual gearbox. In terms of equipment, this being the IS 500, especially being the top trim, you get everything that the IS offers: heated seats, cooled seats, heated steering wheel, driver memory seat, folding mirrors, things like that. The screen runs on pretty old software, not a surprise. It also has this sort of touchpad that doesn't really work that well, but fortunately it is a touchscreen and it still also has support for Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, so it does have the necessities for a 2025 car. Now, I also dug up some CDs because this has a CD player, and pairing with the Mark Levinson sound system, optical music just sounds better, I think, or feels better at least. Alright, moving over to the cluster. This is a digital cluster, and this thing originated from the LFA. If I recall correctly, the reason why Lexus had to put a digital cluster in was because the LFA revved too quickly for an analog needle to follow. If in this lifetime I get to drive one of those, I will die happy. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked here. The cluster does show quite a lot of information, including G-meter and things like that. You can also customize a number of pages to remind you how bad the fuel economy is. But most importantly, this cluster has a moving tach. The tach moves from side to side, and it's a mechanical movement. You can hear the motor moving the clusters from side to side. It's really, really cool. Lexus, whatever you do in the future, please keep this mechanical sort of moving tach. I really want to keep this. Anyway, let's go for a drive. Let me start off with this. This is not a car you would break 0 to 60 records with, although it does it in about 4.5 seconds. This is also not a car that you would chase lap times with. This is quite literally the opposite of the GLC 63 we tested last week. There's no electric turbo, no plug-in hybrid, no electric motor. There's also no electric anti-roll bars. This is just a good old-fashioned, naturally aspirated V8 with a front engine rear-wheel drive layout and a limited slip differential. It really doesn't get any simpler than this, but this formula works, and in the case of the IS 500, it's such a charismatic car to drive. From the beautiful exterior design to the smooth V8 growl, this car is literally the definition of the romantic era with cars. Even just the idea of this car existing in 2025 makes me very, very happy. But if you're in the mood to extract the most out of this IS 500, you can flip it into Sport Plus mode. The tach turns white, do a couple downshifts. Oh man. this is great. This engine also has a very linear torque curve, and it pulls all the way to the 7,300 RPM breadline. If you're in manual shift mode, it'll even allow you to slap the rev limiter like crazy. Kind of just like that, and honestly, it sounds incredible. Now, alternatively, you can put it in automatic mode, or when you shift it correctly at the correct time at wide open throttle, it will do a nice little pop between gear shifts, and oh, that is just voila, so nice. When it comes to the ride quality, the IS500 is an F Sport model, not an F model, meaning that the chassis and the suspension is tuned with a more comfort-oriented idea in mind. Even in the stiffest suspension tuning, it's quite composed. And it's also not nearly as firm as the Europeans. Now, of course, the steering gets a little heavier in Sport Plus modes, and it feels nicer. But overall, even though this has a softer setup, I think Lexus has struck a really good balance to still provide good handling dynamics along with comfortable ride quality. Highway cruising in the IS500 is extremely pleasant. You've got 472 horses of passing power, it's comfortable, and the stock exhaust doesn't drone at all. This car also has Lexus Safety System Plus 2.5, meaning you get all the ADAS goodies like emergency braking, lane tracing, adaptive cruise control, things like that. Honestly, with a platform this old and it being on the brink of its life cycle, Lexus has done an impressive job getting these essential technologies into this car. Unfortunately, there are some flaws that I need to address. Really, it's just one big one and a couple small ones. The big one, the transmission. It is not the fastest thing to shift, and it's a little clunky when you shift manually, especially when the transmission isn't fully warmed up yet. But that's not really the problem. The problem is the logic for this transmission. It's very eager to upshift, meaning, even in Sport Plus mode, by the way, meaning that it's never in the right gear and you always have to kick down. To remedy this, you can put it into manual shift mode, but then you're dealing with the clunkiness I mentioned just now. This gearbox also has really tall gear ratios. First gear goes to over 60 kilometers an hour, second gear goes to almost 110 kilometers an hour, and the third gear goes to almost 160. This car has 8 gears. Why does the first few gears need to be so far apart? I just don't understand that. Given this is a naturally aspirated and it has a power band like a naturally aspirated engine, you would want the gears to be close to stay in the high RPM range where the power lays, but you can't. The consequences of this is that at certain speeds, the Lexus IS500 actually feels slow. It would be a godsend if Lexus somehow puts a close ratio manual gearbox as a final send-off in a special limited edition or something like that. That would be fantastic. Now the minor complaints. I found that the traction control is a little bit too restrictive in my opinion. It's very safe, but it's not very fun. Alternatively, you can turn off the traction control and allow for a little bit of spin until the stability control kicks in to catch you. This mode is perfect if you want to have a little bit of fun and burn a little bit of tires. But the problem is that as soon as you accelerate to over 50 kilometers an hour, traction control automatically turns back on and you have to slow down to below 50 kilometers an hour, click that button again to reactivate it. I'm just trying to have a little bit of fun, and Lexus is making it difficult. And lastly, the exhaust sounds. This V8 has a ton of potential, but the stock exhaust system just sounds a little too muted in my opinion, a little too professional, a little too civilized. If it was a little bit more aggressive and I get to hear those exhaust pops between gear shifts, that would be fantastic. The good thing is, it's an easy fix. There's a ton of aftermarket options for an exhaust, and if you're spending $80,000 or so for this car already, what's another 2 or 3 for an exhaust system? Alright, what about fuel economy? A big V8 yields horrible fuel economy. Yep, there's no way around it. In the city, even if I drive gently, and I mean gently, I get about 15 liters per 100 kilometers. However, if I drive it in a more appropriate fashion, it's easily over 20 liters. Highway fuel economy, on the other hand, is actually quite surprising because I was able to manage under 8 liters per 100 kilometers. Let's say round up to 8 liters, it's still a very impressive number. The tank size is 66 liters in capacity, but given the fuel consumption, it does feel small and you do need to fill up every few days. To wrap up, despite its flaws, this IS500 still holds a special place in my heart. It is the last naturally aspirated V8 sports sedan on the market. It looks great, it's comfortable, and it has a glorious V8. I think this is gonna be a future classic, and honestly, you just know that this car will last forever. You can pass it on to your great-grandkids if you wanted to. Moreover, precisely because of the reliability, you probably won't lose much on depreciation either. This IS500 is priced almost identical to the M340i, so tell me, would you pick this as a purchase from your heart or the M340i as a purchase from your head? Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.